Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for lending me your ears. Today, I want to talk about, we all come across data, right? Percentages, statistics, and all that good stuff. Well, this one, I've heard of this one, and I came across it again. I said, you know what? Let me talk about this piece of data here, and because I think it's worth talking about, especially if we want to close more deals. Now, the original study was done by a company called Lead Response Management, and there's another one by, I think it may be the same company, Leads 360. And what they really looked at is how likely are you to close a deal if someone calls. How long should you take to respond in order to increase your conversion rate? In other words, how would you improve your conversion rate if you responded quicker? And the initial data was something like this, that if you respond within 1 minute, your chances of converting that go up to 391% as compared to not doing it, let's say, for 48 hours. If you wait 2 minutes, your chances of converting go to 160, 3 minutes, 98%. 30 minutes, down to 62%. If you wait an hour, 36%. If you wait 5 hours, 24%. And if you wait 24 hours, your improvement on converting that lead is about 17%. Now, these are interesting numbers. And again, whether you believe the numbers or not, or how they measure them, I don't think that really matters. What matters is speed to response. That the faster you can respond to somebody who's called, has an inquiry, wants to ask you a question, that's the moment to respond as quickly as possible, within a minute, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3. Maybe that's a challenge you give yourself or you give your sales team. So an updated study done by a company called Velocify kind of validated these numbers. Although the numbers are a little different, guess what? The ability to respond within a minute or 2 or 3 will help you increase your sales. So the study done by Leads 360 was at 1 minute, it was 391%. Let's call it 400% better chance of closing. The new study that was done by Velocify basically said it's 114%. So the other one study found it to be 400, the other one found it to be 114 if you responded within 1 minute. Now, if you waited 30 minutes, the first study said 62%, this new study said 72%. Within 1 hour, the old study said 36, this one said 59. Within 24 hours, the old study said 17% chance of closing, and this one said 3% chance of closing. Now, I thought that was interesting, that waiting 24 hours to respond, your improvement on converting that lead drops to 3%. So bottom line is that within the first minute, 2 minutes, no more than 3 minutes, if you want to be around the 100%, improvement on closing rate, you need to get back to that client, that prospect, as soon as you can. If you wait 24 hours, depending on which study you believe, you can drop down to 17% or worse. The Velocify study says 3%. So think about this, that if you don't call back, you're going to lose business. Now, let me add a little more flavor on top of that study. They also talked about voicemail. So now let's combine the two. We want to respond quickly, but let's say we call back and we don't get the person, right? We don't get the person. Should we leave a voicemail? The answer is yes. And they looked at a company that uses a 6-call strategy, 6 calls back, 6 callbacks to a customer to try to close it. And what they found is that if you leave 2 voicemails during the 6-call strategy, that, the ideal closing situation is about 34%. In other words, you'll get a lift by leaving 2 voicemails. You'll get a lift in closing for about 34%. Now, that's interesting, that by leaving a voicemail, you'll get a lift in your close rate by 34%. But they also found something even more interesting, that if you leave too many voicemails, now, they didn't say what too many was, but they said if you leave 5 or more voicemails, your chances of closing that deal are less than likely, and even less than if you left no voicemails. So in other words, we can't leave too many voicemails. I would say, if I were to guess, it's not to leave more than 3. They're saying 2 is the ideal number of voicemails you should leave. I would probably leave 3 and end it on 3. Maybe the third voicemail is, this will be my last voicemail to you, Mr. Customer. If you're interested, please get back to me. Maybe something like that. The first 2 could be still trying to connect, still trying to pitch. But the last one might be, this is my last one. If you're interested, please give me a call, and just leave it at that. But the fact that if you left 5 or more voicemails, your close rate almost goes down to nothing tells you something. So let's tie these 2 things together. One is that we know that we almost have to respond immediately within the first minute, if not the first few minutes. Now, if we don't get the person, let's make it a point not to leave more than 3 voicemails. If you want to go according to the study, call it 2 voicemails. But again, do not leave 5 or 6 voicemails. That is a losing strategy, so I think this is worth keeping in mind. 2 big points again, I'm repeating myself just for effect. Within 1 minute, you can increase your chances, depending on whose study you believe, by 400%, 391 to be exact, or by 114%. But if you wait 24 hours, it drops to 17% in the first study and 3% in the second study by Velocify. So put these things together. Make it as part of your calling program. How would you use this? Is there a way to measure? See, that's a good question. Are you measuring how fast you're getting back to your customer? And if you're not, how could you do it? Can you find a way to do it? It's easy to check when you get an email to actually look at the time and then get back to them. But if you're getting calls, how can you ensure that you get back within, let's say, no more than 3 minutes? Is there some type of technology, software that you can use that will allow you to do so? So keep this in mind. Find a way to make sure that part of your sales process is to get back within 3 minutes so you can close that deal. And that is it for this Sales Influence podcast. This one was a little data heavy, but I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me some feedback. Let me know what your numbers are. Love to find out how long it takes you to call back. What's your average? Share, put it on in the description, in the comments rather. I want to know how long it takes you. And also tell me, how many voicemails do you think is the optimal amount of voicemails to leave for a prospect? Again, that is it for the Sales Influence podcast. Leave me the feedback, and if you get a chance, check out my online sales training platform, the Sales Velocity Academy, at salesvelocityacademy.com. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard. When you call the customer back, leave them optimal voicemails, and you know how. Take care. Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.